The first challenge is to read a book that has the same colors on the cover as your birthstone, and my birthstone is for November, so it's either citrine or topaz, and so that's like yellow, orange, brown. So for that book, I'm going to be listening to the audiobook for Chasing Vermeer. I've read Chasing Vermeer probably way too many times. It's one of my favorite books. I read it first when I was a kid, and then ever since then I've read it like way too much. I think within the past 2 years I've reread that book like 4 times. So this is more of just a comfort read for me. I'm not stepping outside of my comfort zone at all. It's just a nice, happy, quick one-day kind of audiobook for me. So it won't be a challenge. That one, if nothing else gets done, that one will get done. The next challenge is to read a book with the word "the" at the beginning of the title. And for this challenge, I'm going to be reading The Mystery of Crocodile Island by Carolyn Keene. I have also read this book before, but I only remember reading it like once or twice back when I was like really young. So I don't exactly remember what happens, but I know I enjoyed it. So I'm hoping I will enjoy it reading it again, because I just bought it off of Amazon and it's supposed to come before the reading rush starts, but it's not here right now, so crossing my fingers that it actually shows up on time, because otherwise I don't have a book for this challenge. The next challenge is to read a book that inspired a movie that you've already seen. Now, for this challenge, I'm picking a book that inspired a movie that I have not seen yet, but that movie is on Netflix, and the book I'm going to be reading is The Polar Express. And I've somehow never watched the movie before. So just sometime before the reading rush starts, I'm just going to sit down and watch the movie since it's really quick and stuff, and then I'm just going to read the book, which is like even faster than the movie. The next challenge is to read the first book that you touch. Now, how I'm doing this challenge is I put the names of a bunch of books that I really want to read into this mug, and then I'm going to pull out one of the book names, and that's going to be the first book that I touch. So the books that are inside of this cup are Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee, Supernova by Marissa Meyer, Pieces and Players by Blue Balliet, Meddling Kids by Edgar Cantor, Write This Book by Pseudonymous Bosch, and The Penderwicks at Last by Jeanne Birdsall. So I'm just going to cover up the top of this, shake it around a bit, and then pull out one of the titles. And the lucky book is Write This Book by Pseudonymous Bosch. I don't know if you can see this at all, my horrible handwriting. But yeah, so I've actually read a little bit of this book before because I rented it as an ebook from my library like a month ago. But it's really fun because it's like a mix of the actual plot line and story of a book mixed with like just random fun activities, kind of. It's really hard to explain, but if you've ever read a book by Pseudonymous Bosch, like if you've ever read the Secret series, it just feels like the end of the book, like after the book is over and like the fun stuff at the ends of those books, mixed with all of like the footnotes that are in the book by the author and all the chapters by the author. But like that's like 50% of the book. And then the other 50% is just the normal plot. That's what it feels like so far from what I've read. So I don't know if that's an accurate depiction of the whole book, but I'll know once I've finished it what it's like. But I liked what I read of it so far, so I'm going to start over for the reading rush and hope that I like it past the part that I had read before, which I should because I love Pseudonymous Bosch. And it's a pretty short book, so it's not going to be like a time sink of like 500 pages. I didn't mention this, but that book is going to be read as an ebook on my library app, which is Libby, I love that app so much. Oh my goodness, it's so helpful, especially right now. But I'm going to be reading most of the books on this TBR through that app because I only own 2 of the books on the TBR. So 5 of the books are going to be either an ebook or an audiobook that I'm going to listen to or read on my phone. So hopefully the fact that most of these are audiobooks, or a good chunk of these are audiobooks, will help me read the books a lot faster because I can just put the audiobook on like 2 times speed, and then even like an 8-hour audiobook will then be 4 hours. So hopefully I can potentially even finish the reading rush before it's over, like a day or 2 before, but probably not, because some of these books are quite long, and some of these books aren't even audiobooks. Like, one of the longer books, I believe, is not an audiobook. But we haven't gotten to that book yet, but you'll know what I'm talking about when we get there. The next challenge is to read a book entirely outside, and for this challenge, I decided I was going to read a book called Let's Declare Ourselves Winners and Get the Hell Out by Bill Maudlin. And this book is just a book that I own. I'm pretty sure I got it from my college's library when they were like cleaning out books that they didn't want anymore. So like, I have the physical book, but it's kind of boring. But it's, from what I've looked up and can tell, it's just a bunch of like cartoonist pictures over the years of like the 60s or 70s to the 80s. It was published in 1985. So it's like the 70s and the 80s or something. And I just thought it would be interesting, and it's really short because it's just a bunch of pictures with little, like, captions next to them. So I should be able to read the book pretty quickly outside, so I can just go outside onto my porch for, like, an hour and just read the book. So that's why I picked that. And I think it'll be interesting because I'm pretty sure it'll probably teach me a little bit about history. Because as much as I like history, I don't know as much as I want to about the 70s and 80s. So hopefully this will either get me interested in things or just tell me things I didn't already know, which is always fun and enlightening. So hopefully it does that. And I just think the art style is really cool. I like how this cartoonist draws stuff. So if nothing else, it'll be quote-unquote fun to read. It's not necessarily fun because it's the late 70s through the 80s. So, not necessarily fun, but interesting, slightly entertaining, maybe a little funny. So, here's hoping it's all of the above. The next challenge is to read a book from a genre that you haven't read much of, and for this I decided I was going to be reading a book from the contemporary adult genre, kind of romance. I'm not exactly sure how it's classified, but I'm considering it just contemporary adult, and that is One Day by David Nichols. And the reason I'm reading this is because I love Hazel Hayes, and she just released a book called Out of Love, and that book was heavily inspired by One Day. So before I can get my hands on that book, which I think I'd have to buy it. I don't think it's available, like, in the library or anything. So, One Day is available in the library, so I'm picking that, and I'm going to read it, because I never read YA contemporary or adult contemporary, and I don't like romance, but this book seems to be the type of story that I'd be interested in reading, especially because I love the last 5 years, and this reminds me of the last 5 years also. Out of Love reminds me of the last 5 years, but I'm not reading Out of Love because I can't access it unless I buy it, and I don't have the money to buy the book right now. But I'll read that eventually. I'll read this for the reading rush, and then I'll probably listen to the last 5 years, because that's one of my favorite musicals, but we all knew that. It's painfully obvious. If you've known me for more than 5 seconds, at this point you know that I meant to be Jamie Wellerstein. One day. The last challenge is to read a book that's set on a different continent than yours, and for this I'm going to be reading Now I Rise by Kirsten White. And I meant to read And I Darken for the last reading rush, but I ended up switching it out for Heavens to Betsy because they both have purple covers. But I did end up reading And I Darken at the end of 2019, so I'm all ready to go for Now I Rise. And is there a bug on my... Oh my goodness, there's a bug on my phone. Stop it. No, go away, go away. Stop it. No. No.
Please stand by.
Where was I? So I read the book And I Darken, and now I'm going to read Now I Rise, and I was so worried I wasn't going to like And I Darken. And I really love it. I'm so glad I own it. I'll probably buy Now I Rise at some point, but I'm reading it on ebook for now, because they don't have an audiobook of it, which kind of sucks because it's really long. This is the book that's really long that I can't audiobook. And I'm kind of upset because I want it to go. I don't want to not win. I need to win. But hopefully I can read it quickly. And since I don't have to do these in any order, it shouldn't matter. I could start this at the beginning and read like little bits of it throughout the week, because a bunch of these books are pretty quick / they're audiobooks, but for this one I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I can do that in one day, which I can't. So hopefully I can get this one done, because I really want to know what happens, because the last book ended and I was like, ooh, what's gonna happen next? So, oh yeah, and this takes place in the Ottoman Empire, so not North America, so that's why it works for this challenge. Rude. And those were all the books that I'm putting on my TBR for the Reading Rush in 2020. I don't have any books really to hold up for like a thumbnail or for like the end of the video, so this is the only book I have right now. Wow, exciting. Much book. So interesting. Wow. So yeah, anyway, I will see you next week, and hope you're all doing well. If you're doing the Reading Rush, I would like to know what books you're reading, and I will see you next week with something completely different. Bye!